In this first video tutorial, we're going to look at setting up Maya for our character animation and a couple of things that are going to make our life a bit easier and also kind of work in the right workflow. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set a project in Maya. At the moment, if I was just going to file open and open my scene, we'd probably find that we're not going to load certain elements of our file, such as the textures. So our textures are in certain folders in our files. So a lot of the time they're in either source images or assets. Not sure with this. Let's have a look in our assets themselves. It's looking for Maya scenes at the minute for do all files. Actually, I think it was in source images. Yeah, so we've got all our textures in there, but Maya needs to know that it's looking inside that folder. So if I just cancel that. So the best way to do this is with a thing called set project. So if I go to file, go to this set project, just bring my window down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to browse to my 11 rig folder. So I want to get to the root folder. I don't want to go inside this folder. I want to make sure I have the root. So right at the top of the stack. So let's choose that. Let's click on set. Now I've done that. If I was to go to file open, what this is going to do straight away is go to our right folder. So it's going to go to the scenes folder in Maya if I'm doing an open scene. And this is going to give me access to all the other things. So Maya is going to look locally within this folder to find anything it needs to find. So as we're building onto this with our audio clips and everything else, it is best to put them inside this folder in a relevant subfolder. I'm not going to open this up at the moment. Instead, what I'm going to do is a reference. So if I go to File, Create Reference, and just click on this. Essentially, it's doing the same kind of thing. So just bring up a reference, and I can now go to, you would starting out, go to 11 rig 2023. I'm just going to bring up this red blocking one I've done earlier and just reference that. And just click on Continue. So all this is going to give me is my file, but now because it's a reference, if our rigging artist, our technical artist, was to change anything on the rig itself, that would update all our animations, so we wouldn't have to start the animations again. So it's really useful. Obviously we don't have anybody changing this rig, but it's worth getting into good practice straight away. So that is our create reference. So let's click on our textures to make sure they are in there. So I press 6. Going to bring up all our textures. So that's there because of the set project. And let's just start setting up our scene a little bit. So in this perspective view, I'm just going to go to show none. And then I'm going to bring back the NURBS curves. And I'm going to bring back the polygons. Somewhere along the line down here, I have deleted some elements accidentally, but that's okay for this. Just check that you have all the elements that you need on your rig before starting to animate. I'm not actually animating the feet on this, so it's okay. So that's our rig. And what I want to do with this is actually want to create a shot camera. So I want to create a camera that I'm going to act to, rather than just using this perspective. So in games, if we had a game, it may be that we have access to all the camera angles. We allow our player or other players to see all areas of our character. With something like the animation we're doing, more filmic, or if there's a cutscene, we're going to look through certain cameras. So we're going to lead the audience to where we want them to be. So it's useful to have a camera set up that as we're posing our character, we're posing it for the camera. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close the outliner down. I'm going to go into this 2-panel layout down here. Create this. And then I'm going to create a camera. So we can go create cameras. I'm going to create a basic camera. In my outliner, I'll just open this up. I'll give this a name. So I'm going to call this main shot cam. Call it 01. We can have multiple cameras as well, but I'm just going to work with one at the moment. And what I want to do is I want to set this view as this camera. So all we do with this is go panels, perspective, and then there's my main shot cam 01. So click on that. Let's just get rid of my outliner. And I can start moving this camera around. So I'm doing this in the same way that we would actually move our viewport around. Alt left mouse button, Alt middle mouse, and Alt right mouse button. So let's set this up. What I'm going to do is go in and click on show again. And this time I'm going to click on none. And I'm just going to bring back the polygons. I don't want to be able to see these controllers at all. I just want to be able to see my character. I'm going to put the texture on 6, so you can see that. And then I'm going to make it so I'm actually viewing what my camera's viewing. So up here we have these two controls, film gate, and we have the resolution gate. So this is going to set what our camera actually looks like. And this is determined by our settings up here. So if I go into these render settings in my common tab and just scroll down, this is the preset size. So this aspect ratio is correct. If I wanted a full 1080p or 720p, even if I set to these, you'll notice that the aspect ratio doesn't change because it's the same aspect ratio on those things. If I had this on something like a 4K square, you can see the aspect ratio is going to change because of this settings or these settings here. So let's set that, let's just to 720. The bigger we have that, by the way, the longer it would take to render. And even with a play blast, it may take just a little bit longer. So I'm going to set this up something like that, like a mid shot. You can set that however you want it to be. Okay, so I've got that framing on that. I'm going to switch off the grid on this viewport. And then other things I can switch on here as well, just within our view here, we have screen space ambient occlusion. So I can click on that. And that's just going to add a bit of depth where lights wouldn't naturally hit. It's going to create some darker areas there. It's not shadows exactly, it's where light isn't hitting at all. We can change those. I can go into this viewport 2.0 and we can go down to our screen space ambient occlusion. We can set the amount so we can make that darker as well. Bring that down a little bit. It just adds a bit more depth onto it for just, yep, you just see that depth on that. So let's close that. The other thing I like to put on is this multi-sample anti-aliasing, which is just going to smooth everything off in our scene as well. So there I've got my perspective view, which I would use to actually pose my character and select certain parts of the character. And I've got my camera that I'm just using to look through to see how this is all working. So if I just bring this out now, click on this viewport. Okay, you can see what we're doing there. So the other thing with this is that I probably want to make sure I go back to this view. If I accidentally go in here and just drag it, I'm going to change my camera, and I really don't want to do that. I want to stay with that camera the whole time. So what we can do, just set back to where I want it to be, is if I go to view, we have these bookmarks. So if I go into the bookmarks, edit bookmarks, and I can do this for each camera, any camera I have in the scene. Let's just go in and give this a name. So let's call it, or if you don't, if that doesn't come up, you can do a new bookmark. Let's give this a name. So let's call this main shot 01. And if you just apply that, close that. Now, no matter what I do with this camera, mess about with it all I want. If I want to go back to my actual shot, I can go bookmarks, and now I've got that shot there. And we could have multiple ones. If you had another character and you wanted a camera on that and a different shot, we can do that as well. Can move the camera around to have that other character. If I wanted to also have a close-up that maybe I want to check, or actually even use this when I come to do facial rigs, and if I just want to look at the face to make sure it's reading right, I can do that. So again, view, bookmarks, edit bookmarks. Let's just create a new bookmark. Let's call this face close-up. And now I have two of these. So I've got main shot and face close-up. So it's our main shot. That's our face close-up. And you could do it with the hands if you wanted. You could do it with anything else that we're possibly looking at. So really handy to be able to do that. Let's go back to my main shot. Got that set up. If you did want to lock this scene as well, we can do that. I can just go over here and click on this little padlock here for lock camera, and then I can't move it at all. And you see, even when I try to change the bookmark, it's not doing that, it's locking it. So it depends what you're using it for. I like to just set the bookmarks and don't bother locking it. But if you absolutely just want one camera shot and you don't want to change that at all or edit it, just click on this lock. Unlocking it, just as easy as doing that. Okay. So there we go. That's kind of our setup for animating. What I would do at this point is I'd save that as a certain file. I call that maybe my character animation setup, and then every time I can start working from that. Or if I'm working iteratively, save then camera setup 1, camera setup 2, camera setup 3, etc., etc., as we go through. So a really useful way to set up our scene.